Today is June the 24th, 2021. My name is Tanya Finchum, and I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. And with me today are Mick and Vina Weiberg, parents of Chad, Brett, and Jared. And we are in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And this interview will be part of our The We Will Remember Promise oral history collection. So thank you for being here today. By way of context, January 27th, 2001, a plane carrying 10 men associated with the Oklahoma State University men's basketball program went down and everyone aboard perished. At that time, Jared was a student manager with the team and was on the plane. And following the accident, the university and the cowboy community made a promise to never forget the men lost that day. But before we talk about Jared and the promise, let's learn a little bit about each one of you.
Okay. Of course, I've always, I grew up in Anthony, Kansas, graduated Cali County Community College in Kansas, Art City. Played all kinds of sports. That's just something I've always done. Always knew I wanted to be a basketball coach, so that's what I pursued. Got lucky in a sense and found this gal at East Central State University when I was finishing my degree and my master's degree. So from that point, I've been a coaching ever since, and enjoyed in many places. Basically in the community colleges, we started at Carl Albert, started that program at that time many years ago, and then we moved to Connors State, which is affiliated somewhat with OSU. From OSU, Paul Hansen hired me for assistant here at Oklahoma State University in his last year. So we did that, and then Leonard came in and stayed a little bit with Leonard. Decided what we wanted to do is not move around a lot, and we understood that big possibility. So we decided to get out and go back to community college. That's when we went to Northern Oklahoma. From there, that's where we finished our career there.
Okay, let's fill in some dates. When did you come to Stillwater?
That would be in 85, 86.
And then stayed how long?
1 year,
1 year.
a little over 1 year.
And then went to NOC. And retired from there.
And retired from there.
What year?
What was it?
2009.
2009.
So not that long ago.
No, we enjoyed everything then. Of course, that was our family, that's how we did everything. It was around our athletics and what we were doing. And so that was the fun. And in the community college, you could do that. You weren't traveling and out and around as much as.
Didn't have to recruit as far and long.
You're right.
Well, did you have siblings?
I had an older brother, a couple of years older than I am, and he was more in the business sense. He's since passed. And I have a younger brother that Kevin, who was the Big 12 commissioner for 10 years, and was before that the Big 10 associate commissioner. Finished his career at the Pac-12, and now is retired. And so, but that's our family.
Well, how did you get interested in basketball particularly?
Well, I participated in all sports, and I felt like I had a career, and I was really better at football. So I play. In those days, you could play them all. I won't say how old I am, but in those days, you could play them all. So basically, I always liked the basketball side because it moved faster. I just enjoyed that part of it. Football, I really enjoyed playing. Participated and played tennis, of course, and did that in college as well. And so just loved all sports, and but basketball was something I thought I would really enjoy coaching. My opportunities came from East Central, being able to get into the college ranks, and then I really knew that's what I wanted to do. So got lucky, as you have to. Got the job at Carl Albert when we were first married.
That's in Poto, Oklahoma, if you don't know Poto, Oklahoma.
So that's kind of how we got there.
And been in Oklahoma ever since?
Been in Oklahoma ever since.
Wow.
I was afraid to move her. Our families were all, so I was afraid to move her.
Well, growing up, did you follow any particular college team?
I always liked Mr. Ida. From Anthony, Kansas, we're not far from here, and I always followed that. And K-State followed them pretty closely because I had friends of mine played there through the years and that type of thing. And same way with Mr. Ryan, we had some people who played here with him. So that was important to me, is to learn from him. And then when I worked at East Central as a graduate assistant, and that Coach Jerry Anderson was head coach, and he was good friends with Mr. Ryan. And so I got an opportunity to be around him some. Of course, then when I came to Oklahoma State, that was the best thing that ever happened.
And I understand it was Mr. Iba, not Coach Iba.
Mr. Iba.
Mr. Iba.
And I'd go to his house and visit with him, and we'd talk a lot of basketball and really learned a lot from him.
Good. Followed your coaching tree.
And
Okay,
it's interesting.
it is.
I have to brag on him just a little bit.
Okay.
And this is, of course, before I knew him, but he was state champion in the state of Kansas in tennis, in doubles, when he was a senior. And so he was, I guess, quite the athlete in his younger day, because he did the football, the basketball, the baseball, the tennis, but not golf. But anyway, but basketball was his love, and he said he knew that even though he went to college on a football scholarship, he knew that basketball was what he wanted to coach. And so, anyway.
Well, then let's switch gears and learn a little bit about you.
Okay, I grew up in Roff, Oklahoma, R-O-F-F. It's a very small town between Ada, where East Central is, and Sulphur, like maybe 1,000 people. I graduated from high school with 19 people, so that's how small the town is. But I'm the oldest of 5 children. I have a brother just a year younger, another brother that's about 5.5 years younger, and then when I was a senior, my parents had twin baby girls. So I have sisters that are 17 years younger than I. Very loving family. All you did in Roff in those days, activity-wise, is we had basketball and we had baseball. The guys had baseball, and then girls and boys basketball. So I played basketball and, all the way up, and enjoyed that very much, and had been around basketball coaches in our small town enough to, because it seems like whoever came to town was mom and dad's best friends, because they were very involved, going to the games and everything. And enough to know I thought I didn't want to marry a basketball coach, and look what happened. But anyway, a very pleasant childhood from a very loving family that didn't miss anything we did. They were there at all of our activities. And then right out of high school, even that summer, right after high school, I went to East Central, started a summer school. I'm going to go to East Central, which just commuted because it was like 15 miles from my hometown to Ada to East Central. And I needed a work-study job. And so I, was trying to find a work-study job, and they said, "Do you like basketball?" And I said, "Oh, I love basketball." Well, not him, but they were getting a new coach for basketball, and actually a new baseball coach that would be the basketball coach's assistant. So that summer, I start to work at East Central, my work-study job as a little secretary in the basketball office. And they told me in the fall they would be bringing in this young man as a student manager assistant, or a student assistant, I guess. So we actually met in a basketball office at East Central University. And then we dated that year, and then I actually, after 40 hours of school, just that summer and 2 semesters, I decided I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so I moved to Dallas. My dad had 2 brothers that lived in Dallas, worked for an insurance company for a year, and thought I wanted to be an airline stewardess. Had never been on an airplane before, but I thought it would be fun to be an airline stewardess. So, but you had to be 19 and a half, and I wasn't 19 and a half yet. And so I did end up being an airline stewardess for American Airlines for 1 year, but all this time we're still dating off and on. So we actually dated off and on for 3 years. So after a year of being a stewardess, I quit and we got married. And like 2 weeks before the wedding, I quit that. And so been his sidekick ever since.
How did he pop the question?
Well, he kind of just hinted all the time. He just, kept wanting to go look at rings. And
It was really hard to talk with.
and he talked about it for quite a while. But we finally, we went out to eat at a nice restaurant, and we he gave me the engagement ring, but we'd kind of talked about it for a long time, so it wasn't just a real out of the blue type thing, but anyway, so
And when's your anniversary?
October the 3rd. So it'll be 51 years in October. So.
And you
it's
knew
been-
what you were getting into basketball wise.
I did.
So that's,
I did. I
Both
knew
years.
it was a lot of being gone, but I wouldn't change it for anything. It was, you didn't feel like he was gone all the time because me and the boys were in the stands all the time cheering. We went to the away games, and like on the junior college level, the main difference is you go and come back in one day. You get home at 2 in the morning and the alarm goes off at 6 to go back to work. But, and then I got to be thankful for him because this is what I wanted to grow up and get married and have babies is what I wanted to do. And he wanted me to be a stay-at-home mom. And you can imagine back in 1970, he didn't make very much money coaching. And, but I got to be a stay-at-home mom. And then after several years, I didn't start teaching until Jared was a first grader. So we had boys 1st, 4th, and 9th, my first year of teaching. But then I decided I loved kids and that we needed more money and that I could be a teacher. So then I taught elementary school for 22 years. But I call myself a late bloomer because by the time I did 3 years of school, I was 35. Did just turn 35 when I started teaching, but then taught for 22 years elementary.
where did you get your degree?
I went to Connors when we moved there to Warner, Oklahoma after we left Poto. We were there at Connors and I decided I would go back. And so I went 1 year at Connors and then had to commute like an hour and 15 minutes, but I was in a carpool and just went 3 days a week to Tahlequah. So Northeastern, so I graduated from Tahlequah.
So the boys would have been in the elementary and junior high when you came to Stillwater, or
They were second,
roughly?
5th, and 8th graders when we moved here.
Of high school, yeah.
2nd, 5th, and 8th graders when we moved here. And then I got a job at Perkins teaching, which was only my 2nd year to teach because by the time I did my schooling there at Connors, then I got a job at OOHRP, which is outside of Muskogee, 30 minutes from Warner, and then we moved. And so Coach Hansen took us to Perkins, and us as a family, we all went over there, and before we left, I had a job. So it's kind of nice to know somebody. But he was so good to us and everything. So, yeah, and the boys were 2nd, 5th, and 8th. So first year we were here, the 2 younger ones were in the same grade school, Will Rogers. And then by the next year, they were in 3 different schools, and I was at Perkins, so we were strung out, but we did it.
You
So,
managed it
yeah,
somehow.
yeah. So,
And so they were used to moving at least every couple of
well,
years.
Chad ended up going to 4 different schools in his school career, and that makes him where he can meet lots of people and so it was good. It was fun.
So how many years apart are each one of them?
Chad is 2.5 years older than Brett, and then Brett is 3.5 years older than Jared, but they were 3 years apart in school. So they were, 3 years apart in school, the way their birthdays fell and everything.
And did they all three like basketball early?
That is one thing that I'm doing all the talking again. That was one thing I was so thankful for, because you would hear other coaches' wives say, well, my kids are saying another ball game. Do we have to go to another ball game tonight? Or I don't want to go. Never. They always wanted to go, and we went. We never missed a home game. Never. School night, whatever. We never missed a home game. And you play like a 31 game schedule. And we went to most of the away games that we could. And
she would take the kids and ride in the back of the station wagon, very back, all 3 of them.
or no, just 2.
Two to start with.
Chad was 2.5 and Rep was a baby, like
Yeah.
4 months old.
But eventually it was all 3, and then of course, in the very beginning when we went to ball games, we drove cars or station wagons and that type of vans or something. Then we, of course, everything got to where we had a team bus. Then she'd put them on top of the, coming home, she'd fix beds up on the racks. So they'd all get to sleep early and
Get their pajamas
get
on
their
them.
pajamas on.
All you had to do is get them out of the bus, into the car, and into their bed.
Of course, they enjoy those. All three boys just enjoyed being around all those players, and the players like that too. So that's kind of how we traveled. It made life a little easier for everybody, because she could be a part of it. Kids could, we and I could, so we enjoyed those years.
What about for time for homework help or?
Well, they were all smart, so that was a big help. They were all smart and had great grades. They were very good students, and so we got it done. They managed to get it done. My main thing was, I can remember saying you had to take a nap today because we have a game tonight. Of course, no kids like to take a nap. We've got a game tonight. We're going to be up late, so you have to take a nap. This was when they were little, and like kindergarten age. Brett, the middle one, that'd be his first question: do I have to take a nap today? When I picked him up from kindergarten, and I tried to avoid the question because it made him mad if he had to take a nap. But I tried to keep them rested and keep them going. But I can tell you a couple of stories on how bad they like to go. Chad, the oldest one, for instance, one time we were going to Seminole, and my parents were going to be there too because they would try to support them. And that was only an hour from them. Well, Chad had been sick. He wasn't very old. I don't know, 5, 6 maybe. And I said, Chad, we cannot go. We cannot go to this game because you're not feeling good. Mama, can't you just take a dishpan and I'll be okay? We went, and he was okay. Jared, one time it was his 6th grade year, and he broke his growth plate at school. He always teased and said he wished he could tell everybody that he did it playing football because he was on a little PV football team and they were getting ready. He was going to be the quarterback for the 6th grade team. Well, he fell on the monkey bars at school. And of course they had to it wasn't just a break. They had to put a growth plate in there and he had to be put to sleep and everything. Well, he had a scrimmage at Alva the next day, which was an hour and a half drive from Tonkawa. And I kept saying, Jared, we planned to go before he broke his arm. And I kept saying, we cannot go. The other 2 boys we cannot go. Mom, I want to go. That kid, we crawled in the car, drove an hour and a half to that scrimmage. He got out of the car and threw up, and it was because he was in so much pain. But so in answer to your question, they never, ever acted like they didn't want to be there for his games. And of course, they all 3 played also, so we did a bunch of ball games.
So they got there, they watched the game intently?
Oh, yeah.
They were into it.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't about the popcorn, it was
Nope.
about the game.
They were big fans.
No. Chad would enjoy the band also, plus the game. Brett was just into the game. And Jared is such a people person. He would make a friend. We might be the only one in that gym from our town, but he would find a friend before we got out of there. He just was always such a people person. But they were, yes, into the games. And the older they got, the more into the games and just were very much there for their dad and what we did. This was our life.
At some point you became a coach for them? Or
Coach, not Chad. Chad didn't play once he got through high school.
He played all the way through high school. Chad.
Once he quit and got into college, he didn't play. Brett played and played for me for 2 years. Jared did too before they moved on. Brett went from playing for us to Sam Houston State and finished his career there. And then he, of course, pursued coaching as well. And, of course, Jared, of course, wanted to coach. Once he quit, he had some opportunities to go other places, but he really wanted to be around Eddie Sutton and learn. So Eddie was gracious enough to allow him to walk on and be a walk-on. That's how I started here. And then, of course, as time went, Eddie made him a student assistant. So he was a student assistant.
Not just a student manager, he was a student assistant.
And that was the first one and only one
great pride in that.
Eddie ever had.
I should have
He never
corrected.
named a student assistant.
Well,
So,
and some of the things that would come out in the paper would say student manager, and it would make him mad. But that last year or two, Eddie called him a student assistant,
yeah,
which
nice.
was made us very proud. Tell her what happened at NOC when he played for Mick the 2 years there. But Jared's sophomore year.
Well, of course, Northern never been to the national tournament. So in his last year, we were able to win the regional tournament and go to the national tournament. It was the first time they'd ever been. So he was on that team and got to go.
So that was
And played and participated and did very well. So good group of kids. You know, what the boys enjoyed, I think, throughout the years is they were able to be around all kinds of players from all different locations around the world, really. And so I think they grew with that. And they loved it. Like, if we had an opportunity to go somewhere, the babysitter they wanted was a player.
One of the players.
So that's who always was babysitting.
Like if we went out for our anniversary,
Yeah.
well, you want the little gal at the church or do you want one of the players? And they would always go.
Always.
You know.
And that's just the way they grew up. So that was always part of their life.
Well, when you were their coach, would they listen to you? I mean, how did you separate being dad and coach, or was there a separate?
Well,
separation?
you know, we always had and of course being a coach, as parents, when they were playing in junior high and high school and so forth, we never got involved in the coaching aspect. We just felt like
We
that
worked
was not
very
our
hard
job.
not to
And
have
let-
table conversations, you know.
And so basically when they hit the road to play for me, well, then they understood that they'd be treated just like anybody else. And that's the way we played it. Of course, we had conversations at home about things he might be able to do, or, you know, those kind of things, make them better, as we would with any player if they came over to the house. But no, it was a very pleasant, easy time to coach them because they understood the game and knew what they wanted to do. And both those kids were really hard workers, so they really put into their game.
I worried. Brett, the first one that played for him, I thought, he and his dad have a great relationship. Will this mess it up, you know, playing for his dad? And it just made it stronger. And then Jared idolized his dad and was so much like his dad. And after we'd gone through it with Brett and everything went well, I wasn't really worried about Jared playing for his dad at all. And it just enhanced their closeness and their relationship, I think. Because you spend lots of hours with their coach on a basketball court and
Yeah.
junior college basketball, and lots of hours on that bus trying to go and come home too.
Yeah, I'm thinking, did they mind doing the drills? Like, if they messed up and they had to do extra drills?
Oh yeah,
They didn't mind it.
they knew what was coming. Of course, you know, my reputation is that I was a very strict disciplinarian and expected all the kids to follow that line. And they knew that from the get-go when they decided to, you know, they could have gone other places, but they didn't. And so it was easy to do.
Well, when there was leisure time, like on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, did they hit the driveway with a basketball in their hand, or do something
Well, you
else?
know, that's the benefit maybe of being a coach's son is the gym's open to you.
They
So
could get
they
the key
were
to the
able to
gym.
go to the gym, and they did often. I mean,
They spent
an
lots.
hour.
They worked hard at their game. They loved it, and they spent hours in the gym.
And having two that really, all three of them did, but two of them really wanted to do something with their basketball. And of course, they'd go work pretty hard at it, and that helped both of them. Having two of them was easier than one.
Well, did they any competition amongst themselves? Like, did they play horse? And
Oh,
that sort of
yes.
stuff?
Oh,
Yeah, everybody
that
wanted to
got pretty
win.
intense.
Everybody wanted to win. Only one person can win most of the time,
Yeah.
but yeah, they were very
They
competitive.
tried to talk their mother into playing every once in a while. I think that was trying
I'm
to
the
make it easier
rebounder.
game.
All I do is rebound.
But you played in high school,
I did.
so you could at least.
Small school. I wouldn't have been able to play in a big school, but small school, yeah, I played through high school, but
Did you split up and play teams like at home? You know, one parent on each team, and
You know, we didn't do so much in the basketball side of it. We used to play wiffle ball. We played a lot of that and other sports, but, you know, not the basketball
they got
too
enough
much.
basketball at other times.
They usually had a friend or two. that come
oh yeah,
over with
the
them.
backyard could be full
Yeah,
with the
so-
court there, you know, with kids playing
So it
basketball.
was always, you know, several kids around playing with them.
Is it just a basketball?
Yeah, just
all
just
the way around?
probably a bunch of junkies, as we said. That's the way it went.
But they like the band too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Chad was very good in the band, you know.
and Jared was in the band played the trumpet through his junior year. His senior year he didn't, but he played the trumpet from
Yeah.
6th grade, I think, is when they started, or 5th all the way up, so.
And they learned how to play on a team, which is a big lesson that some kids don't get that.
Yeah. But
They were very
overall,
involved. All of them were very involved.
We tried not to make basketball our only thing in our home, so that was important to us as a family, and for them to do other things. And music was good, and so we enjoyed them doing that. And we always said, we may chase basketball as hard as anything, but if we're going to do something else, we'll chase it just as hard.
Okay. Well, then during downtime, what would be some of the things you would do besides wiffle ball? I mean, in the wintertime too.
We didn't have much downtime.
Then
I'm telling you.
You on the road to the games.
For example, the year we moved to Tonkawa, Jared was 4th, 7th, and 4th, 7th, and 10th grade. Jared had an 18-game schedule. Brett started on the 7th grade team and the 8th grade team. Chad did JV, but he also was on the high school team, plus his schedule at the college. So and basketball season's long. It starts November 1 and goes into March. In the summer, we like lake activities. My folks had a boat when they were younger, and we would go home and we'd all play on that. And we ended up getting a boat, and vacations would usually involve skiing. They were all skiers and slalom, and so we did a lot of that. And
Fish a little.
Brett and Jared worked lots of summer basketball camps. They worked his camps. Jared, I know, worked Frontier camps, a small school close to us. OCC camps for Dan Hayes. He worked camp, and Brett did too. Even OSU, when he was here, he worked camps. So their summers were, and they worked. They worked. They mowed lawns when they were young in the summer. And they got to clean the dorms since he was at the college. It was a job in town and it paid. And so they were, they worked. We had them work, so I don't feel like we ever had any downtime. We were always busy, it seems like, going or doing or something.
Oh, when it was time to learn like how to drive and that sort of thing, would you do the teaching?
No, we were very fortunate that Tonkawa had a driver's ed at the time. And Larry Smith was a driver's ed teacher, and he was an old ex-coach and that, so they enjoyed him and learned to drive, bless his heart, from them. So we didn't have that responsibility.
Nick was very adamant. Some people would let their kids drive before they were legal, Well, he'd been a driver's ed teacher in his younger, when we were first married, he didn't let those kids drive till they got legal, pretty much. They didn't drive very much, and they got to learn how to drive through driver's ed, so.
And drive themselves to practice at that point? Or
Yeah, but it's a small town. You didn't have to drive very far to get to the gym, 3 blocks maybe. Yeah, well, if they wanted to drive. Once you got a car, you wanted to drive. Who wants to walk if you got a car?
Yeah.
Well, then I have to ask, with 3 growing boys, how'd you keep them fed?
Well, everybody talks about that, and I don't think they were. Like some people say, I just can't fill them up. They ate, and we ate 3 meals a day, and I cooked. We didn't go out to eat very often back in those days. But I don't feel like they were, just hard to fill up like you hear some people talk about. And we did have 3 teenagers at one time. There's about exactly between Jared and Chad 6 years difference, and so 13 and 19. And, then you get so many cars in the driveway when they all turn 16 and get a car, and we've got a car, so feeding them wasn't that bad. But they were good eaters, but.
Have favorites? What would be some of Jared's favorites?
The first thing that pops into my mind was, my mom made it too. It's macaroni and tomato juice, or like tomato sauce, and it's just macaroni, and it's a side dish. It's supposed to be a side dish, and we still eat it today. It's one of our favorites. You put chili powders in it and just can of tomato sauce, not juice, tomato sauce. Well, he would get a cereal bowl, not a side dish. He would get a cereal bowl and fill it full of that macaroni and tomato juice. So that was one of his favorites. And pizza, we all liked pizza, and spaghetti, but he was a good eater. He would eat anything, steak, potatoes anyway, and so he was just a good eater.
Carbs, so you'll have energy to play.
Yeah, he was a good eater. He was 6'4", much taller than Chad's 6'1", Brett's 5'10", and he's 6'1", and all of a sudden we have this 6'4", big, strong.
When did he have his growth spurt?
We tease about him because being the younger one, you want to do everything those others do, and we it's a family joke. I mean, like our extended family, that Jared stretched himself into that 6'4", because he would walk up to me and say, "See, Mom, I'm taller than you." He'd be down here and I'd be here. "See, Mom, I'm taller than you." And we just teased that he stretched himself into that 6'4" frame. But I don't remember it being a huge growth.
Gradual.
It just kept going, and we of course expected him to quit at 6'1" for sure, but he ended up a legit 6'4". And so.
What position did he play? I should know that, but I don't.
He was basically a small forward, shooting guard.
But for Tonkawa, for high school,
Played point guard.
he was the point guard his senior year some people might not think this is a good deal, but he got the plaque his senior year for most improved player. But that just shows you how much
Effort
he worked. Brett was a more gifted player that worked hard.
More
Jared,
natural.
natural, there's the word. Jared wasn't as natural, but he worked extra hard because he wanted it so bad. Tell her about the shoes.
The what?
The shoes for jumping.
Oh. Yeah,
He didn't know anything about this, so he did it.
He was always looking for a way to get better, which a lot
He
of
worked
athletes
so hard
try.
at it.
So one day he comes in and he's telling his mother and that he wants to see shoes.
He'd spent his own money on it.
And he spent his own money on them, and they're pretty high dollar, and that because he's working on jumping better, and these shoes are allowing him.
These shoes, they came with instructions. These shoes were supposed to help him learn how to jump better. He got those shoes, and this was like maybe senior year, or maybe even the summer before he played for you.
That's
he
right.
was wrong, but he was still trying his best to get better. And he bought these crazy shoes we'd never heard of that he had found that was supposed to help you jump better. And he went out to the gym and he worked in those shoes, doing everything this instruction thing said to do with
Every
these
day.
shoes,
He'd go to work and then go back to the gym. And
Well, did it help?
he thought it did. I won't
Who knows?
say.
Who knows?
I don't know,
Anyway.
but it was interesting. But yeah, Jared was one of these kids that self-made, really, you'd say, as a player. It didn't come natural to him in any way. Although he could really shoot it, and that was from him and Brett going to the gym every day and shooting, which is what makes a good shooter. Plus, paying attention to how to do it correctly from coaches and people that taught him through the years.
Wasn't blessed with quickness,
I know.
but he just worked.
So he could really shoot the three, and he was a really good free throw shooter, which is big, and he was very physical, and that's what was always interesting. And Eddie loved that part of it because it could put him on his so-called best player, and he knew Jared would be really physical with him. It'd make him mad. And Eddie really liked that, toughen him up a little bit. But that was Jared. He was just a physical player. He liked the physical part.
Played good defense.
Played a lot of D. Loved to play
This
D.
man is, defense is the name of his game, so our boys grew up knowing about defense.
Well, while we're here and thinking about it, 3 points, since we're talking about 3 points, do you want to tell your story about the 3-point?
Yeah.
We've been hopping around, but
And I
don't
think,
want to-
okay, I think I've even got a picture of it, maybe. Right there you go. That year, which, just his junior year, after he played for Mick 2 years, that's the only year that he was a walk-on with the team. The other 2 years he worked, for Coach Sutton in the office type thing. Anyway, that year we had a point guard that was a very, very, very good point guard, but he was kind of notorious for he couldn't make his free throws. And so, you need your point guard that's handling the ball to be able to make free throws. And of course, the only reason you get to play as a walk-on is if you're way ahead, and then once you're way ahead and you get to go in as a walk-on, the other kids try to get you the ball because they want you to score, the kids that play all the time. So sure enough, they throw Jared the ball, he shoots this three, he gets fouled. So he goes to the free throw line. And, we're sitting there, we're sitting there just like, dear Lord, helping, No, but anyway, so he stands up there and he makes all three of them. And so after the game, before we even got to see him, I think we were going out the way, and some little old lady, probably my age now, some little old lady says, well, and she didn't even know he was our son, that kid that made those 3 free throws at the end, they need to put him in more often because he can make his free throws. Well, then when we get to Jared, after he gets dressed and come out, and lots of times we'd go out to eat here in Stillwater with him after the game, he told us, he said, I was shaking like a leaf. I was so nervous that in front of all these people, that he said, I thought I might airball all 3 of them, but he didn't. So that's his claim to fame, is his year as a walk-on was making those 3 free throws.
100% free throws.
Yeah.
My husband remembers it, and I was in the arena too, so it is fun to see walk-ons get out.
Yeah, and they do. The kids are always they try their best to get the ball to them so they can score, and the house comes down when they do, but that was fun. That was pretty exciting.
Did he have a particular routine when he was going to shoot? I mean, some of them you watch, they really have some.
Pretty much all of them do, I think. All of them are different, but pretty much all of them have a routine that they do.
Yeah.
So he got in the stats.
Yes, he
stats
did.
For that.
Yes,
for that
he
game.
did.
We'll take a picture of it later and see how it does.
Heavens.
Well, I always used to tell my team, of course, we had kids that walked on and that as well, and we treated all of them the same as Eddie did in practice and so forth, that you did what everybody else did, regardless. But knowing that those kids probably not going to play a whole lot, but I always used to tell my players, who makes you better is those people. And that was kind of Jared's upbringing. So he really pushed people he's playing against in practice.
And his decision not to keep being a walk-on, he could have been walk-on again, but he just wanted to learn from Coach Sutton. I mean, he had learned from his high school coach, which he loved. He had learned from his dad, and I think he felt like he could be more, learn from the inside more than being a player, and he did. He loved Coach Sutton, he loved Sean, and he felt like he was learning from them, and he wanted to be a college coach. That's what he wanted, was to be a college coach. So, and he worked hard at that job too, and it was a work-study job, but he spent so many hours that he wouldn't even turn them all in, literally, because he spent so many hours working with that program from breaking down film even. They would have him do some of that, and he wouldn't even turn in his hours because it was ridiculous to realize that he'd spent that many hours, working. But
he considered it fun, probably.
Well, and he considered he was bettering the program, he felt like, and he was bettering himself by doing all these things.
And he got to do things that, he always wanted to be able to do. You see, at the university level, there's a difference.
Hang out in Coach Sutton's office and know him personally.
Yeah, and he trusted him very well. Jared actually took Coach Sutton's mother home a lot of times, drove her back in Kansas.
Some friend of theirs would bring her part way, and Coach Sutton would send Jared to meet them, and then like Christmas, I did it a couple of times, and we even got a real sweet letter from her saying, I'm 91 years old, but I just wanted to tell you how sweet Jared was, and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it was sweet of her.
Well, he could get the inside scoop on Coach Sutton, couldn't he?
Yeah.
And he enjoyed visiting with her. She enjoyed visiting him, and that was fun.
Were there any parts of the job he didn't like?
He never said anything negative about anything. He just loved what he's done. And
I think he just knew all of it's part of the overall scheme, no matter what you're doing. If you're...
the ups and downs of coaching and ups and downs of the players and so forth, he's been there, so he understood that. So I don't, he never really talked about anything negative. He might have a question, and that about something that was coming up or something that, that was kind of an unknown at that time, but that's about all we ever would talk about. He just enjoyed what he was doing. It was a
number
blessing
was
for him.
30.
31.
31. Was it always that, or?
He had 31 through school and pretty much all the way. They retired at Tonkawa High School, and we retired at Northern.
Here's the deal when they had the retirement thing of number 31, and it's an oversized jersey, and a great big thing that they have at the college there.
Was there any particular attachment to 31 for him? Any reason?
No, he just had it.
We've had grandkids that have been 31s,
Yeah.
Since this has happened, but
There wasn't a pro player that he liked or something that wore 31?
No, Jared had a lot of players he really liked, but and respected, but not anybody he just absolutely thought was somebody he wanted to mimic or be like.
Did he follow a pro team? Was he a fan of any particular professional team?
Well, he liked Larry Bird back in his day, when he was young, because, Bird was in his heyday a little bit. Who else?
I got a good story here.
Go for it, girl.
When his brother Kevin was what conference would Kevin have been working for when we went to Chicago?
He was in the Big Ten.
And Kevin was able to get us Chicago Bull tickets, and we got to see Michael Jordan. So we took that whole spring break and took the boys. We took 2 days to drive there. I think we spent 2 days with them and 2 days home, but we got to go see Michael Jordan. Of course, our seat was way up in the nosebleed section, and Jared was, I think, a 6th grader that year. And how those pro teams, well, even OSU, come out and practice before they go in, before they come out. Well, we're sitting there, and of course, we've got our binoculars, and he's sitting right next to me, and when they come out there, he's got those binoculars, and he says, "Mom, I can see Michael Jordan's face." So that was a highlight for all of us. And that was in the heyday of Michael Jordan and the heyday of the Chicago Bulls. So that was a real fun trip that we got to do, thanks to his brother that we could get to. Then, of course, when Jerry got to do that, some of his friends' mamas were wanting to know how they could take their kid to do that. Well, you got to know somebody to get a ticket to go to one of those games. Pretty much you got to know somebody, so that was real nice of Kevin to do that for us, get her tickets. So.
Thinking of Larry Bird would be another tall person that probably need help learning to jump too.
Yeah, Bird. The thing that, of course, Jared always marveled at, he wanted to be tall, as tall as he could get.
Yeah.
But he always marveled at how tall these guys really were when you saw them in person. And of course, just like his time at OSU, those kids just keep getting bigger, taller, stronger. And it's always fascinated him how fortunate some people were to get that kind of size.
Back in his
ability.
early days, a 6'6" post guy was a pretty good post guy. Now you need a 7-footer. It's just they just keep getting bigger and stronger and better. So
Yeah, they
me in his day
strong.
when he was coaching, but anyway.
We probably as a family, because of coaching and that, we really didn't key in on people as far as making them number one of anything. We talked about their abilities on and off the floor. What is really good about this individual and that type of thing.
And they watched him on TV.
And they did pay a lot of attention and
trying to learn
the overall.
See what they were doing.
Yeah. But nothing, I don't know of any of them that really had a strong feeling about any one person.
Well, they were too busy following.
Yeah.
They were too busy doing their own basketball to worry about too much else is
Yeah,
what
that's
it
what I was
really
thinking.
was. Mhm.
So in high school, Jared played, and then he was good in academics as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Did he have a favorite subject?
He was actually, when he graduated from our junior college, 4.0. Yeah,
And playing ball.
And played them ball. And again, it wasn't a natural gift. He worked at everything he did. to get I mean, he worked hard at everything he did. Just, but I'll never forget Brett saying one time anyway, it was after we lost Jared, and he had picked up a book that Jared had studied from, and he was looking through that, and he said, Jared read this book. It was like a classroom book. He's highlighted and read this whole book, and Brett would have probably skimmed it and tried to do the best he could, but he just took it all very serious, and he was a honor roll student in high school, for sure. He was in the National Honor Society. He was president of his senior class. He was president of FCA his senior and junior year in class. He was a delegate, Boys State delegate for Boys State, in the course, in the band, with the sports. And of course, you can do lots of things in small town. And Tonkawa that's where he went from 4th grade through high school, and then 2 years for him. So he was in Tonkawa a long time. But it has like 3 sections of each grade, so there's only like 3 4th grades and 3 5th grades. But so you can do things that in big towns you're limited to just doing one sport or one activity. But he was very personable, very involved. One thing he's known for is his hugs. We actually even have it on his headstone. The little ladies at the church from junior high or younger, junior high up, loved him because he would come in and he would hug them and he would listen to their stories and he would ask them how they were doing. And literally, he's known for his hugs and how he tried to make everyone feel like they were important. And so...
Had he learned that from either one of you?
I just think it was kind of, I don't know, from the time he was little bitty, he wanted to be right up close to you. He just liked to be really close from the time he was little. I think one thing we did different from him than the other two, it's a new mama, the baby's sleeping, don't touch him, be quiet, shh, the baby's asleep. Mm-hmm. Well, he wanted to hold him, I wanted to hold him, Chad wanted to hold him, Brett wanted to hold him. So we would pick him up, sound asleep, and pass him around. And put him back down when we were, and he was just always real affectionate. He just was. And hundreds of people have said the same thing about him making us feel so special. Like, I was a total stranger and he did this, or it just over and over and over. So and he tried to put everyone in front of him, or make everyone else important. Like his best friend in high school went to OBU as a piano. They played basketball together, and he became a piano teacher. Well, Jared would make time to go to OBU to watch Andrew's piano recitals. His roommate in college at NOC had 2 younger sisters that ran track, and then of course it got to state track meeting. He would try to go watch Jace's sisters at the track meet. He just was a very put everyone in front of himself type of person, and that's just the way he lived his life.
Good examples for the parents.
Well, I don't know how it happened, but he was just exceptional in that area.
If he's doing all this, when did he sleep is my question. If he's making straight A's.
Well, and I would ask him when he was working at OSU, do you ever do anything? These would be phone calls, and he was real good to call us often, and maybe Mom, will this sport coat go with this pant for the game tonight, when he was getting to sit on the bench at OSU. But I know he worked so many hours. I'd say, Jared, do you ever do anything for fun? You just felt like he was working an awful lot to be a college kid, but it's what he liked to do, and he was looking to his future. And he said, well, Pat and I hang out some, and that's Pat Noyes. And so Molly is who you visited with them, Pat's family, I think. And this was Jared and Pat at an OSU game. And here's Jared, when they, how they have all the people. Here he is in his orange tie. And here's he and Pat at a game, at OSU.
He looks a lot like Chad.
Well,
oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's
I've
actually
not met
people,
Chad, but I've seen pictures of
there
him.
are people who see Chad now, thinking they're looking at Jared.
See, Chad worked here when Jared was going to school here. And Jared might be at a softball game and someone just strike up, and see, there's 6 years difference, and someone just strike up a conversation, and Jared finally say, I think you think I'm my brother. And then the same thing would happen to Chad, that's how much they looked alike to people, that they would actually get them mixed up, if they weren't there together. Jared actually lived with Chad. When he came here to OSU, Chad was buying a house. He wanted to buy a house. So we helped him with the down payment. He had money to make the monthly payment, but not a down payment. So we kind of gave him some money that would kind of be Jared's, what we would pay for Jared to live somewhere else. And so they actually lived together for, it was going to be 3 years, but it was 2.5 years. So.
Oh, well, that didn't bigger her.
Don't know about that. But they did. They lived together and then enjoyed each other.
I'm thinking with 3 boys too, that they have hand-me-down clothes. Did that?
Oh, yeah. Especially when you were a stay-at-home mom all those years, you definitely, and of course, Chad and Jared were the same season, for winter clothes, since they were, Chad's birthday's February 21st and Jared's March 9th. So they were just, same season. So you'd say Chad's clothes that might not have worked season-wise for Brett, but they would for Jared. So yeah, I did a lot of hand-me-down things. Tried to make sure I didn't have Jared's picture made in something that his brothers had a picture made in before, because that wasn't too good.
Did they share rooms when they were under your roof? Did they share bedrooms?
Some, and flipped on who shared with who for a while. Chad and Brett shared a room when we had the nursery for Jared. They shared a room with the nursery, and then another move, we decided Chad needed a room to himself, so Brett and Jared shared a room. And actually, they shared a room till we moved to Tonkawa, and then we had a bedroom for all of them in Tonkawa. So by the 4th grade, they all had by Jared's 4th grade year, they had their own room.
So they were used to being under the same roof even?
Oh yeah, they were all very close to each other.
You asked earlier about competition a little bit, things they did. One thing they did when the video games came out, where they could play basketball on them or football, there were some pretty heated games between the 3 of them.
Let's just swing into the day of the accident, and then we'll come back around to some other things afterwards. Do you want to take us through that day for you, whatever you want to share?
Well, I'll start it. She can take up where she wants to. We had been out that evening to what's called a Roustabout program. It's a musical program
At our
campus
college.
at Northern. And we'd spent the night, evening there, and going through that with a couple of friends, couples. Then we all came back to our home to have a snack and, ice cream and stuff at the house, and we were sitting there visiting, and then a friend of ours, a lady, called on the phone and said there'd been an accident. Didn't know exactly what, but the plane went down, one of the planes. So that was when we first had reference to it. So then we turned on the TV, and there was some things coming across, but they didn't really know. So
it was all over the TV.
Yeah, on the TV, but we weren't sure exactly what. So then I went ahead and called Eddie, Coach Sutton, and of course he got on the phone right away and said, yes, it has went down. Jared was on the plane. At that point, they hadn't really identified Jared on the plane yet. They had some of the others, but not Jared at that point. But
so we weren't
he
seeing him on there, so we kept hoping, that maybe, because they didn't have a list of who was on what plane, and so they were just trying to think who all was on that plane.
But we pretty well knew he was.
And then all of a sudden it hit me, he would have called me by now.
Yeah.
If he wasn't on that plane.
So.
And they had to go out in the parking lot and try to see whose cars were left before they could kind of figure out who was on that plane. So at first we didn't see Jared, but then when he talked to Coach Sutton.
Yeah, they knew. So that's what we knew at that point. And then, of course, from that point on, everything changes.
Everything changed. Did he typically call once he got back from?
No, and I'd walked through the living room that day and saw him on TV. And we didn't even know for positive sure he'd gone. And you can tell why I was thinking about not going.
Well, we played at Seminole Junior College the night before that.
Thursday night.
For that. So it was 2 nights before.
We'd seen him Thursday
Yeah, before they left for Colorado. the
with
next day.
an OSU assistant coach. They'd come to watch some of the players.
Yeah, Sip. He was with Sip.
And so he'd had Jared come with him to watch. I don't know if they were looking for someone on our team or someone on Seminole's team. So we got to see him. The last time we got to see him was the Thursday night before the crash. And he was still kind of wondering if he would go or not because of the practice teaching.
Yeah, well, he visited with me a little bit, and he was fixing to do his practice teaching. He was taking graduate hours as well, master's classes.
He had 9 hours on his master's, but he was finishing up the
practice
undergrad.
teaching. And he mentioned to me, he said, Dad, I don't know whether I need to go or not. I'm supposed to be my first time with it, and he was going to do that with the
Bill DeFee.
the football coach.
He was the head
there,
football
who
coach at Stillwater High for a long time.
Taught the
Advanced placement,
classes.
AP classes of history,
and
and he was
what
going to do
Jared
his
was
interning
gonna
with
be
him.
doing. And so but I said, well, Jared, you just got to do what you want to do. I mean, you can do whichever one's fine. You might want to talk to Coach DeFee. Well, I think he did, and Coach DeFee said, well, that's fine to go, that won't be a problem. So that was the last time we saw Jared, and he made the trip, from there you kind of.
I actually saw him on TV, that afternoon, but, just.
And they had a shoot around. They were playing horse or some other game, and at Colorado that first night, and Jared won it. As all the players play, all the guys, coaches, and everybody would play. I think it was knockout. They were playing knockout, which is fun to do. So he would talk to him at that point, but then after that, I don't guess we talked to him again.
And then our boys, Brett was coaching at UTSA, assistant coach at University of Texas at San Antonio. So after we talked to Coach Sutton, then of course we start trying to get a hold of them, and luckily Chad was down there with him. Chad had been down there to watch the game that night, and Mick tried several times to call him, and I think it was after the game, but they were in the head coach's office visiting him. And so when Brett came into his office, he saw he had missed a jillion calls from his dad and knew something was wrong. So at least they were together. So we got busy trying to get them plane tickets home.
Right. And then the university got busy with trying to plan the memorial service for that Wednesday afternoon.
It was Wednesday afternoon, and it was nice, and OSU's done everything they said they would. They said we will remember.
Yeah, President Halligan that night said that. I was there too, so I remember that.
We had they signed each family a personal, I don't know what you'd call it, but someone that was supposed to kind of keep in contact with you and see if you need anything. Ours was Kathy Jo Warner, and she worked for the university at that time, and she was a friend of Chad's, and therefore Jared's too. And so Kathy Jo was, right there to help us in any way she could. She came to our house. Dr. Halligan and Ann came to see us. I never can remember Lee. What's his first name? Anyway, another couple they came and brought their 2 little girls to visit with us. People were very good. And the memorial there was good. And they had a beautiful memorial service for our son in the gymnasium in Tonkawa that we did nothing. We did absolutely nothing, and just people lifted us up and just took care of us. There were millions of flowers. There were tons of people, literally it looked like college graduation with all the seats down on the floor, besides in the gym. And I'd have thought that, our church might be big enough, but thank goodness somebody talked me out of our church, doing it. There was a super nice article, like the very next paper, that I could not believe that the publisher of the paper remembering a prince. Just a very nice article on our son.
Almost overwhelming.
It was unbelievable. We just couldn't believe the outpouring of love and support from people at OSU and Tonkawa, and of course we've been to several places, so people from all the towns that we lived in before, but and of course OSU gave all of us those big pictures, which I was so thankful for, because the best picture I had of him was a senior picture, but then OSU gave all the families the big 16 by 20, the flowers. Our president of the college's daughter had a floral shop, and they did, Dr. Kinzer, and I think she did this type of thing, that they hung over the gym. Terry got chairs from Tonkawa, from NOC and OSU that was on, it was just a celebration of Jared's life, from Tonkawa to NOC to OSU, and it was a beautiful service that
Jared is.
we did nothing. And just when you think of people lifting you up and carrying you through something like that.
Random acts of kindness.
It was awesome.
That was a neat idea for someone to have too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they had to contact someone at OSU to bring
And quickly, too.
chairs, Coach Sutton and Patsy came. Sean and Trina came. They were there in the front row, for Jared's service. That meant a lot.
All the little ladies that he liked hugs from.
Yeah.
Them were in there.
I just wanted to bring this just to kind of show you, when you want to talk about do people pick up, this is just part of what people did for us. This is just, we had boxes of sympathy cards. This is just mainly the people that wrote letters to tell us what Jared had been. We had no idea this kid was touched this many lives. We had no idea he had touched. This thing right here, her husband was tearing down the old lockers in the gym and had cut these off and saved them and given them to his grandson that was only 5. And then
That's when they were remodeling.
when they remodeled the Gallagher thing, they'd taken down old lockers, and it's just unbelievable. And many of these start with, you don't know us, you don't know me, but I knew Jared, and this is what he did. And it just blew our mind to just keep getting this type of thing over and over. And
Coach Sutton.
well, there's Coach Sutton's mother's note that she sent, but just wonderful, supportive words. And the like one lady wrote that she said, came back to do my graduate work, and she said I was going into this class, because I don't remember the professor's name, could have been your husband. She said I was going into this class and I saw this good-looking young guy over there, so I thought, well, I'll kind of get that empty seat by him. She said I started walking over there, tripped on a chair, and fell flat on my face right in front of Jared. And she said he was so nice, and he helped me up, and are you okay? And it was so sweet. And she said we became great friends, and I think they even, did some things together. Another gal wrote and said, I had a Chi Omega party, because she knew Jared. I had a Chi Omega party, and 2 days before my boyfriend, my date, backed out on me, I called Jared. Jared, would you want to do this? And she said, all he said was, what do I wear? And she said he was a perfect gentleman. But just story after story after story. And we had boxes of sympathy cards that didn't go into this book, and of course, but and then the whole underlying thing that everybody said over and over and over was his big smile, his sparkling brown eyes, and how he always made us feel special, that he really cared about us and what we had to say, and what a strong Christian young man he was. And that helped. But I do know the night that the crash happened, that was one of the first things that went through my mind. I know where he is, because he was in the same youth director that did all this, that had been Jared's friend from, he came before Terry came, but I bet within 2 years. So I bet he worked with Jared from 6th grade, all through high school, through junior college, was still a great friend. 2 things that Jared did get to do, you think of all of,
you think of all the things he didn't get to do. You know, he didn't get to get married. He didn't get to have a job. He didn't get to have any children. But he did get to be in Brett's wedding. Brett got married in August, about a year and a half before the crash. And then Terry, the youth director that did the service for him, he got to be in Terry's wedding also. Terry had 2 guys that stood up with him, and Jared was one of them. And so he got a strong, strong faith, and that helps. That's the only thing. If you've lost someone like that, you know you're going to see them again someday.
Yeah. And really, you know, from the get-go, from the day one, Oklahoma State said we will remember.
And they did. They did. And of course, they took us all out to the memorial in Colorado. Took us all out there, and that was nice. But I swear, that memorial in Gallagher-Iba Arena, what more could you do? It's beautiful.
It is.
And it's not stuck back in a corner somewhere where nobody sees it. It's in a very visible, a visiting team has to walk by it to get to their dressing room, you know, so that they did, the Remember the 10 run.
Yeah.
I had one of the mothers tell me
That's amazing.
the first time that we had that run, she said, Vina, this is the nicest thing they've done for our boys. So that run meant that much to them, and we're thrilled that it raises that much money that can go into the counseling department, you know. We have an NOC for 20 years. We've given a scholarship there that's an endowed scholarship in Jared's name that goes to a basketball player from the beginning. It was endowed very quickly. And then just the last 2 years, we've now got the one here at NOC, at OSU, where goes to a manager, preferably, you know, or someone that's helping with the team.
Do you participate in the run, or have you?
We're there every year. We've been there. We do the fun run. But yeah, we haven't missed one. We've been there.
Is it Team Weiberg or something?
We've had shirts before, and so, yeah.
So that does help.
It's very nice that they have, you know, you're thinking, yeah, sure you'll remember. They said they will remember, and I don't know what else they could do. It's just, you know, they have been so supportive, and we hear so, you know, even on this 20th anniversary, when we didn't get to do the things we normally do, you know, the run didn't happen, they always have us come together for the game closest to January 27th, the home basketball game. They have the families come, they have a dinner for us every year.
Yeah.
And then they do the Jumbotron with their pictures up there and the moment of silence and all that. I just don't know. They said they would remember, and they have. They have.
And under your pins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We worn out some, but guess what? When we wore out some, they gave us some more. And so, you know, it was a tragic thing, and nobody wants to lose their child. But accidents happen every day to somebody. They happen every day to somebody, and
Well, we know one thing, Jared and all of them on that plane were doing what they loved. And that takes a lot. You know, we know that, and that makes a little bit of a difference too. You know, they loved what they were doing. And what happened. So OSU, I think, has done a great job with it. They've continued to support us in many ways, and I think they feel that way about all the families, and just really have been good. And you know, it's amazing the tragedies that OSU's been through. This is one, but they've treated all of them very, very, very well, and so important. And I think that speaks to the family that OSU is.
you do feel like it's a family, you know, or we do at least. We do at least. And I got sidetracked there. Even though we didn't get to have the January thing or the Remember the 10 run, we got phone calls from people, you know, around the January 27th that are affiliated with OSU. Just want you guys to know we're thinking about you. Lots of these letters were from people that worked with Jared in the athletic department, you know, and but but I'd say probably a big part of them were strangers, and that just makes you
Yeah.
really proud of your boy when he touched people's lives. And a lot of them were from either the child themselves or parent that was in his when he worked basketball camps. A whole bunch of them were from, well, my little girl can't quit crying because she had Jared in basketball camp, and she just is so sad. But anyway, people just reaching out just makes you want to be a better person, makes you want to think about how you do things when other people have tragedy, because people were wonderful, from our OSU to our church family to, of course, our immediate families to his NOC family at the college to my school people. You know, it was just, they wrapped their arms around us.
And how well people have really attended the 10 run, and really the money going into the counseling program is helping a lot of people that need the help, students as well as their families. So, you know, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Big.
Someone has referred to it as the Oklahoma standard. OSU's response has become the Oklahoma standard. But
I don't know what else they could have done. It was a tragic thing.
Yeah.
It happened. But what do? You just try to.
Did you have any input on the memorial in the arena? I mean, as far as, did they ask?
Oh, yeah.
Ask your,
What? Oh,
the
yeah.
inscription, I know you did, but the rest of.
But yes, they did. They
Yeah,
would
they
send
let us know what they were thinking, how it was going.
that
That's
as it
the
progressed.
statue, you know, that's been made, the kneeling cowboy, and everything. They let us know how it was, and if we had input, we could give it or not, you know, and what we want to do.
I just think it's beautiful. I
Everything
just think
we
it's
saw
a
was
beautiful
perfect.
memorial. It's just so nice. And
Yeah.
even people will get a letter from someone and said, we were on a vacation in Colorado and we went by the memorial there. And it's so nice and it's clean and they've kept it up. So we'll get people that'll, reach out even yet saying, we went by that memorial and saw that. And we've been out there a few times,
That's amazing. It's,
Yeah, no, I've not been there. It's on my
Yeah.
list. I've not
yeah,
been.
it
Have to
really
go.
is. And to thank the firemen there to take care of it.
That was my next question. Do you have any stories about the townspeople?
At Strasburg,
Yeah.
no.
We personally, we don't. We have heard about them. We haven't really talked to any of them.
Okay.
We've been out there a few times, but we didn't talk to anybody in particular. But we've heard a great deal about it,
And the
how well
firemen maintain it?
they maintain.
And I think, does OSU go out every anniversary too, out
To
to there too?
Flowers
They
and stuff out. Yeah, they do. And probably are very much involved in maintaining how it's maintained. But no, it's really a nice memorial. And actually, they continue to do things with it. I think they've done a few things over the years to take care of it. But, it's when you think about the time frame from '01 to now, it's most things kind of fade away. This hasn't.
And I don't believe that it will, not anytime soon anyway.
Coach Boynton will come and talk to the people like at one of those lunches, and of course the kids that come to play for Coach Boynton now weren't even born.
Yeah.
They weren't even born then, but he says, I take them down, I show them the memorial, I tell them, about these kids' determination and how good of people they were and everything, and so, it's...
Yeah. Well, even the opposing teams spent some time now, which is good.
Everyone needs to be aware, I think.
Yeah. And if they're playing that game during, that they have the Remember the 10 game, most of these opposing teams
Wear the shirt.
Oh, yeah, and that's nice too, it's just nice, makes you feel good when people remember it, it just does,
Yeah.
And then the other aspect, you were involved in the task force to look at the travel
I did.
policy. Do you want to talk a little bit
Yes.
about that?
Well, was Fleming and I both sat on that, and it was very good. We were asked to sit there or to be a part of that and give our input as what we thought. I thought that the time was well spent for us. We were able to give our input to it. There's certain things you can do and there's certain things you can't do. And you have to travel and you have to do things. So, the discussion was really good with, I don't know, there's probably 10 or so of us there. And basically what they really want to know is how can we keep this from happening again? And not only with OSU and travel, but the Big 12, other conferences around were interested in what we were seeing and doing. And so it was a time for everybody to reflect a little bit on their travel. And I think the good things came out of it, that they felt that individual planes were not a good way to go. But also, I'm an old coach, so I know in junior college when you travel like we did, coming in 2 or 3 in the morning after playing games and stuff, you really don't need to be driving a bus. And so those things came up a little bit, and surprisingly, a lot of universities still work. Tennis teams were going, golf teams, etc. And really, you really don't need coaches with their mind somewhere else driving. So from that standpoint, it was a good experience. I appreciate them asking us. Hopefully we gave a little bit of input to it. It was good. But the one thing that all of us felt like was, no matter what you do, you want to keep people safe. You don't want to put them under any kind of situation that might not be. You've got to keep in mind, just like we talked on this meeting, that somebody has to make those decisions, and you can't put the blame all on them. And that's unfair. And you really got to just talk about the whole situation, what are you going to pull together. And I think that's what came out of that. Of course, so far it's been very good. So, and other schools adopted it. Universities adopted what we did. So that was good. So.
And then the accident happened in 2011.
But those are things, you hate to see it happen. Coaches have done this all their lives, so, and they can't make those choices. And so you hated to see that happen, and yet I would venture to guess the universities all across the country are still doing it. Because
But these donors willing to take you, and you need to get there and get back, probably in time for practice.
It's kind of,
It comes down to the dollar too, I guess,
Yeah,
too.
it does. But it speaks highly for OSU and their endeavor to make sure this didn't happen again. And they put that task force together, and it was an open task force where you could say what you wanted to say, and you got 2 fathers involved in this, so you don't know exactly whether everybody's going to step up and say what they think or not, which they did, and that's a good thing. So it was, I thought, well attended and came out with a good outcome.
How many times did you meet? Do you remember?
Oh,
roughly?
I don't really remember 3 or 4 times for sure, but we had some meetings where they sent us stuff, we reviewed it, that type of thing. So, yeah.
So the first time you went back to Colorado, was it for the dedication, or did you go in between? Did you go before?
We didn't do it.
We did not try to go to the site. It just wasn't something we felt like we wanted to do.
I had a hard time with that for a long time.
Yeah.
I had
I
a
can only
very hard
imagine.
time. I love the one in Gallagher Island, and that one was hard.
Well, how long did it take you to come up with the inscription? It's very well.
Everything was hard for me. I
Very
mean,
well done, I think.
everything's hard for me. I just make everything hard. So he tells me all the time, I overthink everything. But I'm telling you, Brett, you know, I kept asking the boys. Chad helped me immensely. Oh, I called Chad about everything, you know, even to write a thank you note that was for a big group. You know, I'd read it to Chad over the phone. He stayed with us for like 2 weeks before he went back to work because he was working for a shift. But Brett, all of a sudden, when we were trying to think what we've got to come up with something, what are we going to do? He just spilled that out exactly like it said. And that covers Jared. He placed others before himself. He did it over and over and over. I got hundreds of letters that says that. He loved his family unconditionally. I mean, he was so supportive and so proud of his brothers and just, you know, loved them. And then hugs. He gave out of all of his hugs. Because these letters say that over and over and over and over. Our church, and they'd even say, people would say, I love how he would put his arm around me, his mama, in church as a teenager. How many teenagers will do that?
No.
But he just was so loving and so patient. And here's a couple of pictures.
This is kind of interesting. That this tells you a lot about him. This one was little.
His dad, 4th grade.
He
there
made a road trip with us a few times. You know, he'd ride the bus and go. I didn't go to this one. But he'd get right in the huddle with us.
Is that not in our gym, huh?
He was in the tent.
No, it wouldn't be because we got on red uniforms. It'd be a right game.
And
he's even dressed sharp like that to do that.
And I mean, when they're standing up in the huddle, this is the same night.
He's right in there with it.
So he was into the coaching, you know,
Even
way
that
back,
age.
even back then, you know, wanting to be like his dad and wanting to be like Brett.
Looks like the players are okay with him.
Oh yeah, they all
They
loved
put
him.
in there, too.
I had girl college players after the accident that played at NLC say, I remember Jared as a little boy. I think he rebounded for me more than anyone on my team. You know, just when they were doing shooting practice, he'd be out there in the gym and would be rebounding for those girls.
He went to a Wichita State basketball camp with Eddie Fogler and his assistants and that at camp, and he went with him. I don't know, he wasn't very old.
It would have been once more in Tonkawa, but
Yeah.
maybe 5th grade,
Yeah,
something like
maybe
that.
somewhere in 5th grade or 4th, 5th grade. Coaches called me and tell me that this guy's something else, they said. I said, well, why? What happened? I didn't know what he did. He said, well, we were all eating in the cafeteria, you know, the old campers all up. Well, when Jared saw the coaches come in, he just picked his tray up and went over and sat down with them.
He was sat with a bunch of kids, and then the coaches came. He felt like he was just as much into
That's
it.
what he's always done.
And so we weren't too surprised, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But he didn't think anything wrong with going over and visiting with the coaches while they had their breakfast.
He just got right in the middle of the camp.
And the campers probably were happy to have him with them too then, or didn't think he was playing.
He
I don't know.
just thought he'd just go over and visit with them.
He belonged to both
Yeah.
worlds.
Yeah.
This is a cute picture and story. When we first came to OSU, Coach Hansen sends Mick on a recruiting trip right away.
Yeah.
And he says, now next week we're going to have a basketball camp. You can send all 3 boys. And I said, well, you know, is Jared old enough? Oh yeah, you just send all 3 boys. So I go out, of course, after they get going, I go out to watch, and he's gone on the recruiting trip. It was probably a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Chad was going into 8th, and Chad was old enough. Well, he was just going into the 2nd grade. The T-shirt came down to here. In other words, he was not near old enough, but you wouldn't have known Jared didn't know that he was not old enough. He was just having a ball out there playing with all those kids, and I guarantee you he didn't think any of them was any older than him, and he was way too young for that camp. But because we were new and Coach Hansen was wanting us to get involved, he sent him, and there he was the day that he got his little certificate or whatever from Coach Hansen's deal.
He was probably a good ball handler even at that age.
He worked on it.
He
And another cute story, when we lived here in Stillwater at 2nd grade. This would be going into 2nd grade, and this was at 2nd grade. Tell the Cub Scout story.
Cub Scout.
Popcorn sale.
Oh.
His brothers had had fundraisers
Yeah, they'd
before, and he'd always
they'd
wanted to
all
help
been in
them,
it. So Jared always thought he needed to be out selling and doing stuff.
helping Chad and
Well,
Brett
he
sell.
finally got where he was in Cub Scouts and they had a popcorn type sale
Like
going
the Cub
on
Scouts do.
and everything. So Jared came to us and said he wants to be the #1 seller. So, we said, well, fine, Jared's gonna have to work at it. He said, if you would. So all of a sudden he's gone.
Every day after school.
Every time he comes in, he's gone. Of course, back in those days, we didn't worry about him in the neighborhood. Well, he didn't just stay in the neighborhood. He sold popcorn everywhere.
We'd have to tell the boys,
Go find
supper
him.
time, go find him, go see if you can find your brother and bring him home.
So he ends up being the #1 seller
And all
by
of
a
Stillwater.
long ways. And then it came time for him to have to deliver. That's when we really realized where all he had been. Because then I started taking him around to see, make
Had to
sure he
deliver all
got
the
it, get it delivered. Well, we were all over Stillwater. He had sold everywhere.
By
So
foot or on a bicycle.
That's the way it was. And that was just him.
He did everything kind of overboard, he just tried
Kinda
to
like
be
your
the
mama.
very best. No, I worry overboard. But he did just,
He did his best each time.
he
So it
tried to
sounds
do
like-
his
He wanted
best
to be the
in
best.
everything that he, tried to do.
Yeah.
But above all, to be the best person he could
Yeah.
be to people, to friends, and that's what makes you so proud.
Well, it sounds like he didn't have to be pushed or reprimanded or, told to do that. He just,
No.
well, in his teenage years, did he go to prom? I'm assuming he went to
I
prom.
brought one. I had all 3 prom pictures. There's a senior prom picture, and that was
Yeah.
not a girlfriend, but just a good friend. Her mother taught business at the high school.
Well, he
and-
is tall.
Yeah.
But I had the sophomore, junior, senior prom pictures, but I did bring that one.
He
Had a girlfriend in junior college. Pretty, he really liked her, and they, dated for a while, but she ended up going back to her old boyfriend before Jared, and actually married that guy. But anyway, and had, he had dates and stuff, but she was kind of the most serious girlfriend that he had, and
he never had it real serious.
It would have to be someone like you that would enjoy basketball.
well,
Yeah.
Well, your other 2 sons have kids.
mhm.
Are any of them named after Jared or?
Our oldest grandson was born 1 month after the accident,
Same year.
same year, 1 month, and his name is Jared Cole. So he goes by Cole, but his name is Jared Cole. And then Chad's son, Grant, which is 12 and a half, and will be a 7th grader. His name is, Jared's middle name is Grant, and Chad's name is Chad Michael. So Chad's son is Grant Michael, so he's named after Jared and after his dad, and after Mick's name is Michael.
Okay.
So our 2 of our grandsons are named after him. So that was very sweet of our boys to do that. And those boys know who they're named after too, and that's our blessing. We said over and over, especially way back then, we don't know if we'd have made it through if we hadn't had that grandbaby 1 month afterwards, because he gave us something to be excited about, something to be happy about, something to look forward to. And then they did move back from San Antonio that summer, and Brett was Mick's assistant. So they moved back to our town, and Brett was his assistant for several years, and their other 2 kids were born while they lived in Tonkawa also. And that's what you have is what you have left. We have 2 sons, 2 daughter-in-laws, and 5 precious grandchildren, ranging from 20 to 12 and a half in age. So we're blessed.
Are any of them interested in basketball?
The grandkids.
Great kids.
Cassie is the youngest one of Brett's, is very much interested in it. Brett's daughter is going to be a senior. She's a pretty good little player.
She wants to be able to play
She wants to go on
college.
to play college, and she'll probably get an opportunity to do that.
We don't know that yet, but she's
Well,
wanting to.
she's getting some looks and
They're
talking.
doing
to
a
her.
travel team this summer to try to get more exposure. For
She's
her.
been offered once, so there's a chance she will.
She's a three-point shooter like her dad.
But that's probably the only two that are really involved, really. Chad's youngest boy really likes music. And
He's done soccer and he's done basketball
Yeah.
all the way up to this point, like
plays. And Chad's got a daughter who's 12, 13, I guess.
no, she was 15 years old.
15, that's right.
Just this month.
That's
this
right,
month.
15. She likes volleyball.
Okay.
Really does volleyball.
She's done a lot of volleyball and it's
They're
really
all
fun
like
to watch
they
her
all like the
do
sports, and
volleyball.
all of them are into that. Grant likes it. All of them like it, but I think they have other interests as well, which is good.
But we enjoy watching them all do as much as we possibly can. All five of them. We're very proud of them. And,
And you've retired from from NOC at Tonkawa and moved. You're somewhere more fun, or fun, let's not say more, but
yeah, his dream come true was to retire on the lake, and by gum, that's where we are.
okay.
We've been
But
there
still in Oklahoma.
in Oklahoma. We're up in northeast Oklahoma on Grand Lake, and we have a home with a 180-degree view of the water right in front of us. So we just walk down to our dock, and we're on the water. So it's pretty nice, pretty nice.
And how many, or do you anticipate coming down to OSU games now that Chad is a
Well,
baby?
we've been coming.
Yeah.
We've had basketball
Through the
tickets for
years.
years, and we hardly
So
miss a game
we-
unless
We really enjoy it. We come to football when we can. And
2.5 hour
So-
drive to watch a game and 2.5 hours home. But we, of course, last year, we didn't get to come because of the pandemic. But before that,
Yeah.
we have, seems like we really started it more so when Jared was there,
Yeah.
because he wanted us to come and they let parents come and sit in this one little section. So we, and of course, he was still coaching. So you couldn't come to all of them because you'd have conflicts. But then even since Chad's been back
Yeah.
this 4 years, if we weren't watching Brett's team play and OSU had a game, we came.
We've
Basketball's what we do.
even after the plane crash, we came every chance we got.
We did.
We watched them play.
We did.
We kind of believe in supporting our teams. So
Through thick and thin, up and down.
Thick
You
and
stick
thin.
by your team.
Yeah, ups and downs, yes.
and that's been good. That's really been good for us as well.
And you've been able to keep up with Coach Sutton because of
Oh,
some
yeah.
some of that too then.
Mhm.
Finally got in the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. And it- long overdue, but we were happy about that.
And I think you're in the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, aren't you?
No, I
Oklahoma-
really not. I'm
Oklahoma Basketball Association.
well,
Hall of
I'm
Fame?
in that, but
Yeah.
yes.
In the Oklahoma basketball one, I
Yeah.
guess there's
Yeah.
in the basketball Hall of Fame. I guess there's another Hall of Fame. He actually, one of the nicest honors that's ever happened to him is his name is on the basketball court at Northern Oklahoma College. And that doesn't happen to very many coaches that you get your name on the court. And so
That's what longevity will do.
we were there a long time.
But you won too.
And
Had
he
a
won.
winning record.
He had a very successful career. So that was a very nice honor that they did for
Yes,
us
it
there
was.
at Northern, for sure.
So that was not a bad decision to go there.
Well, no, not at all.
No, and the people,
No, we really
Nice people
enjoyed it. And,
in 19 of my 22 teaching years was there in Tonkawa, so very good school system and good leaders with that and everything.
Was it hard moving away from that town?
For me, yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. I don't think it was for him near as much as
Because
it was
the lake was calling.
uh-huh.
well, when you get through coaching and through being so involved in things, and maybe it's more so in a smaller area, sometimes it's just easier to get away from it a little bit and let others take over, and
So Chad's here. Where's Brett now?
he's in Medill, Oklahoma.
Okay, still in Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's coaching basketball there and the athletic director and vice principal. So he's
He's got 3 jobs too.
busy.
And it's about a 4.5 hour drive for us. And of course, he's coaching and our granddaughter's playing. And I think we made 14 of those games this past basketball season.
Well,
So,
you're surely spending the night somewhere along the way.
no.
No. No?
But you try to go when maybe they're in a tournament. You can get 3 games in one trip, you know. And
Yeah.
But we try to be supportive of whether they want us to be there or not. We try to be there.
I think there's lakes down in that corner of the state too, isn't
Uh,
Yeah,
But not like the one he wants. He likes Grand Lake.
there? Well, it's
Yeah.
prettier up in there with the
It is
trees
pretty.
and
It
hills.
is
hills.
nice. It is
I think.
nice. And of course, but anyway, yeah, we enjoy our family and feel very blessed to have the boys and
Close enough
wives and that it's not an airplane trip to go visit them. You know, when Chad was in Lubbock, it was an all-day trip to get out there. He spent 2 years in Lubbock before he came back.
to go.
They liked it there, believe it or not. They did enjoy it, and I think he liked the people he worked with and everything. But we felt like they were in our backyard when they came to about 2.5 hours away instead of 8 hours or whatever it was to Lubbock. So,
thrilled to get him back home.
yeah, very happy for him.
And they're probably happy that you're on the lake too. That gives them some place to.
They have time. Of course, the kids are all getting to that older age that they're involved in so much, but they try to come when they
It's
can.
amazing how
When they were littler,
times
they came.
change
kids
when
were
they get a little bit older and get involved in all their
get a
activities.
boyfriend. You know how that goes when you get a boyfriend.
Yeah,
Well, we've covered a lot. Is there anything that we need to go over that we haven't?
not that I
I
know
think you've
of.
covered a lot of mine. I mean, I was going to ask if there were any triggers that just instantly take you, to Jared. I mean, something like a certain song or the noodles and tomato probably.
Yeah. Well, Chad told a story. When you said song, it makes me think of this. That Garth Brooks song about you wouldn't have been able to see. I wouldn't skip it because all of a sudden I'm going to go blank here. The dance. In other words, the song is about things didn't turn out right. You wouldn't have skipped what got you to that point. And we almost had him 23 years. And, you know, I wouldn't give even the hurt. We're thankful for those almost 23 years. And Chad said when he left us to go home, back to Stillwater, after spending about 2 weeks with us, that song came on. But it's amazing how you can sometimes just talk about him and be just fine, and then sometimes you just mention his name and you fall into tears. And it's been 20 years, so you guess that'll go on forever, probably. But anyway, we're thankful we had him as long as we did, because he was a good boy.
A good stock, it sounds like. So,
I don't know about that.
Well, you're blessed to know some people, and always you remember those people forever. And in your lifetime, that's very important. You know, to have those opportunities, whether they're short or long. And we were blessed.
And I think I said most of what I wanted to say, so.
Well, just double check though.
Well,
go on through. You're welcome.
I could go on and on, but I think we've done plenty enough,
We'll
you
make
know.
sure we've covered what you want. That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
I think we've pretty well kind of covered everything I wanted to say.
I had read that he did statistics for the team. Was that one of his jobs?
Yeah, he did. You know, Coach Sutton let him do a lot of things. Even, you know, he actually even helped them with some of their scouts.
Therefore, the student assistant title, we think.
But, well, what kind of clarified that in that last year, Eddie changed his description of it to student assistant, which Eddie had never had a student assistant. He'd never done that before. But that's because of the role he was given, Jared.
I think they gave him a lot of responsibility as the time went on.
Responsibility to do the things he did, and then I think Pat and Sean and Jared, hung out together a lot, and that increased that too.
He thought a lot of Sean.
Yeah.
He did.
So it was,
Well, since he wasn't on the team, he didn't have to live in the dorm with the
Right.
players.
Right.
Well, as a walk-on, did he have to too?
no, he didn't have to.
So it was
He worked with
zero
his brother.
scholarship, with the walk-on. There's nothing.
Okay.
And the upperclassmen a lot of times don't have to, they can live off campus or whatever, so,
Plus he had Chad.
Yeah,
So it was,
probably a financial help for us, and then it helped Chad get into his house, with the down payment. So,
and it was good for them to get to be together.
and another thing, graduation. They had us come for graduation that May, after it had been in January. And of course, they had to come on up stage to get his certificate of graduation. Well, I remember telling President Halligan, Jared would really and truly be getting this. Some of the kids, of course, like Nate Fleming and Daniel Lawson were just getting it because Jared really would have been graduating that May. And like I said, he had planned to go ahead and get his master's before he quit going to school. That way you didn't have a job and trying to work on it. And he already had 9 hours on his master's at that point and was going to do his practice teaching and then finish up on his master's because he wanted a college job, is what his dream come true was to be a college coach. So but anyway, he was that close to graduating from OSU.
To be teacher like mom and coach like dad.
Well,
He's covering both
If you want to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth, most college coaches don't have to teach. You want a college job, so you don't teach. Now, I'm just speaking from the college coaches I know.
Well,
You get to the point that not a lot of,
Jared liked teaching, so.
well, we don't know that. He never,
Well, he mentioned it many
he liked
times over.
teaching basketball. He would
Well,
work
He liked
with,
working with kids.
uh-huh.
He definitely had aspirations to be.
He was real cute when he first started, when Coach Krause, that was at his junior college, that's the women's coach, started asking him to work girls' camp. And I didn't know about that. Didn't have any sisters. He'd never worked a girls' camp before. And one day he came home telling the story, Mom, I had this one group of girls and I tell this one to go in and she says, oh, I really don't want to go in right now. And of course, boys were always dying to play. And that just blew his mind. One time a girl came to basketball camp with a note that she couldn't participate. She had some type of injury. She was there for the social aspect. Those kind of things just blew his mind. But he would let me look over his evaluations at the end of the week when he, would have to write out their evaluations. And he was so good at that. And he learned to really like working those girls' camps too. He enjoyed that just fine. And a lot of these letters are from those girls and from mamas of those girls saying, my daughter, Jared was her coach at basketball camp, and he was so kind and he encouraged her so much, and he wrote the sweetest evaluation and things like that. So he didn't know about that girls' deal for a while, but he got used to it and worked Coach House.
It is a little different, I understand.
I would assume.
He never didn't have a daughter. These 2 granddaughters is the closest he's come. So it's been a whole, and he's one of 3 boys, and his dad was an only child, so he wasn't around. He used to say Weibergs don't have girls, but we found out we got 2 of them. So,
You didn't notice it though, did you?
notice what?
Girls. Not our family.
No. Oh, no, I raised 3 boys too. We didn't have any girls either. No.
So she was a believer for a while.
Well, yeah, black girls were few and far between, but we have 2 precious, beautiful granddaughters, so.
That's true.
Anything else on your cards?
I think I'm good.
I think we're good.
It's like he said, get me a ticket. Did he say that some? Get me a ticket. Let me in the game. He would say, get me a ticket to get in.
Oh,
When he,
Jared, you mean?
Yeah.
To come to what?
no, when they
yeah,
were to get in to play.
Oh,
Get far enough ahead
oh,
so that he could get in the game.
yeah.
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 They didn't play walk-ons unless you were really ahead. Yeah. But
Yeah, we have season tickets, and I always get excited when
Yeah.
walk-ons
Yeah.
get it.
well, that was the highlight of him hitting those 3 free throws.
That's
I was
the
so happy
reward.
for him.
That's the reward they get for a lot of hours of work.
Of work, trying to help
the other kids get better. You got to have good people to practice against to get better and better and better.
I know when they went to the Elite Eight one year, this is when Jared was being still just a student manager. They were up in New York, and they had to send some of the kids back for tests. So they'd flown a few of them back for tests, and the others had stayed up there.
You're going weeks of
course,
playoffs.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
were fixing
when you
to
get
go
to the Elite Eight, you heard it was
They were
32-16.
practicing for that. And Coach Sutton came to Jared and said, Jared, I'm going to have you suit up. Now, Jared hadn't been practicing that much, through that time. So he said, I got to have you suit up and play if you would, because we don't have enough to.
Not for the game, but just in
scrimmage.
practice.
Didn't have enough scrimmage. So Jared said, that's no problem. They do that, Coach. Of course, he does. And of course, Jared's aggressive. And I forget them telling him, the coaches were telling us this. Jared was fouling the best player. I won't mention that name particularly, but was really on him, fouling him quite a bit, and really getting him that time. And he got so frustrated, he just wanted to walk off.
The player, not Jared.
And mad at Jared, Sutton said, well, if you can't take it, just go on to ditch you a shower.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be what it's going to be like this next week. So that was Jared, and that's and he just loved that kind of thing, like that. So had a lot of fun. His time was short, but he had a lot of fun.
And he got shoes and helped him jump.
Yep.
No.
Did you keep them? Or did he pass
No, we
them
don't
on?
have them. I don't know what happened to those shoes, but we were bumfuzzled by the idea of it. But by gum, it was his money, and he got them, and he worked out in them too.
And he worked hard in them.
You didn't. I don't think you played in them, did you? It was just
you
a
couldn't
workout.
play.
They were weird looking shoes. You
They
didn't
were-
play in them. You just worked out in them. It was supposed to build the muscle.
Stressed your Achilles or something. I don't remember
I
that.
don't know either.
Never heard of it before.
Well, if he was
Or
6'4",
since.
if he was 6'4", what size of shoe did he wear? I imagine.
He was about a 12, I
Just a
think.
12, I think.
Not that.
Just a 12. I think it was just
Yeah.
a 12.
That's about what it was.
You have to go through a lot of basketball shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things have got priceless. Been
Yeah,
amazing.
amazing. Yes, ridiculously.
Yep, world changes. Everything changes.
Changed a lot that day, didn't it? Too?
It did.
Go back to different. All right. Well, we'll just wrap it up and say thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you for asking us.
20 years from now, people will know
We like,
who Jared was.
we like to talk about it.
Obviously, you can tell we like to talk about our boys. So
Sure. Well, thank you for doing it.
you're welcome.